You're listening to the Spy-Fi After Dark podcast. You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
Arshad, are you ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
Welcome back to Spy-Fi After Dark.
What's going on, guys?
It's your boys, Millie
Alex.
and Allie.
We have a special episode for you guys. We're going to be discussing the future of this podcast.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not too redundant with my little bonus episode last weekend, but that was mostly more about how I was feeling. So it should be a little different. But yes, today is season finale, season 2 or 3. Sorry.
Is this our 23rd episode?
25th.
25th.
Yeah, I hit the
damn.
big 2-5.
That's awesome.
It's fucking sick, dog. We killing it up here.
It's a lot of consistency. Props to Millen for making this happen. You know, I've enjoyed every episode we've done together. It's been great. It's been fun. It's always a pleasure to have guests on, and yeah.
Yeah.
So
So there's no guest this episode for those who are not watching the video.
it's just us.
We're just going to do a little meta conversation to wrap this out. And I will say off the bat, because I know you're going to be wondering, when is season 4 coming? It's going to be probably late August or early September. Probably around that.
Probably early September. You're planning on.
Yeah, like 4 to 5 weeks of no episodes.
Yeah.
So 5 to 6 weeks from when this episode releases. Probably.
Yeah.
Barring any drastic changes, but that should be doable. So the big difference is that the format is going to shift. We're still keeping basically the soul of what the podcast is, just refining it and refining the presentation.
Millen has had some ideas on how to structure the podcast at a high level more effectively. And then we've also just we've asked some of our regular viewers to take a quick survey so we can gather some additional feedback. And we have a good idea of where to go now.
Yeah. So the highlights being episodes will be 45 minutes long, as opposed to most of them this season have been around an hour and 5 to an hour 10.
Same content, more or less. We're just going to be refining the episode just to make it a little more consistent throughout. And then Millen also had an idea just regarding overarching topics per season.
Yeah. So each season will be shorter. It will be 4 to 6 episodes, and each season will have a theme. The theme being like a larger scale topic that then we can tackle from several different angles throughout the season. And those episodes they'll all be tackling it from a different angle. And the final episode is a reflection episode, a sort of what did we learn recap episode. That'll just be me and Alex.
This is to add some continuity and really bring a season together, because just up until now, we've been doing each episode more or less independently.
Yeah, very slapdash.
Yeah, and it becomes difficult regarding preparation, planning, and it's difficult even to just kind of understand the product at a high level. If someone were to come in at any moment and say, hey, what is this podcast about? It's difficult to explain. But regardless, same soul, same flavor coming at you. Just gonna be a little more structured.
Yeah, my biggest thing, as you mentioned, is I can't explain the podcast to someone right now. Like if someone asks me, what's your podcast about? I'd be like, well, it's about this and also these 9 other things. So there's not really a cohesion, but we're sort of narrowing in that it's going to be sort of a general current events commentary kind of podcast. But the current events being a mix of current events and like popular culture current events. So it's not all going to be serious, you know?
Yeah.
We'll have episodes about like Marvel and Star Wars and stuff too.
We still want to reach out to you guys. We've been able to deliver conversation, but now we also just want to help people listening to us have a little more insight on current events and just general topics at hand. And we think we can do that. So we're going to be keeping up with just what's going on around with our world. I mean, we're living in a crazy time. Hopefully we can just help articulate some of the thoughts you may be having about what's going on in your life. So,
and I'm shooting for about 5 or 6 seasons a year based on the length and how much time will be in between each season. So one of the biggest issues right now with the current podcast format is because we have to do an episode every week, I don't get to spend enough time on them. And I don't have enough time to think critically about them and how I can improve them and make changes. It's always like, oh, I need to record another episode. I need to record another episode. I need to record another episode. It just doesn't stop. So I figured that it would be much more sustainable to have a nice, significant 4 to 5 week break in between each season so that I had time to assess, like, how did that season go? Like, what can we do better next time? Or what was like really working? Can we lean into that? How can we reach new people with the podcast? How can we expand our audience a little bit? How can we make this more approachable? And I think with this new format in particular, it's going to give me the time and options to do some stuff I really wanted to do, like creating trailers for each season, which I'm actually really excited about. Because I
think we're going to have twofold benefits to this new structure. I mean, Millen has been wanting to offer trailers and take the podcast as a whole to another level. But at the same time, just on an episode level, we've had some recurring issues with like breaking into that comfort space where the flow of conversation with like a guest is where it needs to be, kind of a little too late into each episode. And part of that is because we're focused on the hustle, getting a guest on, making things happen. But when we have a structure coming from the season theme in mind, that's easy to keep consistent. We'll be prepared more effectively for any and upcoming episodes.
and we just have more time to prepare too.
You'll have more time. You'll have more time, especially, and we'll know where we need the episode to be in the episode, and that will give us more time to be smarter about also building rapport for you guys. I feel like that's been a little slip too. When we bring on guests, we need to, have the guest really introduce himself or herself to the audience. So we want to make everything better, not from that detail to the overarching podcast itself and how it's presented.
So, I mean, I'm hoping we can, because all the episodes will be recorded and edited and finished before the season comes out, with like maybe an exception of the last episode if we're running behind for some reason. But really the goal is all of them will be done by the time they start coming out. And while they're coming out for a good chunk of that time, we'll take like a couple weeks off and then jump back in while they're still coming out, wrap up that new season during the break of that current season, and then it's ready to go for the next one.
Got it. Yeah.
And I'm hoping that with the extra time, Alex and I can basically develop talking point outlines for each episode before we record, and we both have them, so we both know what we're trying to hit.
That's what I was trying to bring up.
Yeah.
Good point, Millen. Yeah. So that's going to help us just be more effective with communication to you. And it's going to help us be more effective in making our guests comfortable and just well suited for the episode and the episode topics. We've had issues with that in the past. So we want each episode to be very, very smooth, a lot of fun for the listeners, and just coherent throughout. That's our goal.
And I think that was like my favorite episode from this season is the Star Wars episode with Scott. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was so good, is because I actually had a sort of outline going into it.
Yeah,
it wasn't an explicit outline, but it's like, I want to cover these things.
Right. And he knew what he was going to talk about, as more or less. I mean,
yeah,
a little
well,
bit.
I guess I had given him a prompt essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he came on ready. Like, he was excited to talk about what he wanted to talk about.
True.
Millen did a very good job preemptively keeping himself like time conscious. So in that in that episode, when Scott and I would maybe go a little bit into the weeds of like a tangential topic, Millen would pull us back into the center line. So that episode was very, very good. And we want more of our episodes to be like that. And we've had great feedback from you guys regarding that episode.
It's also the highest performing episode in the season.
Yeah. So we want it to
by a pretty good margin.
We want it to be like that. We want that product to be consistent.
So we're going to go to break in like 5 minutes or so. Maybe a little bit more than that. But before we do, let's just go ahead and introduce what the general topic is going to be for season 4. And also, just so you know, after the break, we'll talk about, because I want to get more of what Alex's feelings are on the podcast so far, on the recording. We've obviously talked about it a little bit on the phone, but I want to get some of it on there so you guys can hear where he's at too. Because last week, you had my bonus episode, which was 19 minutes. And it was just me talking about how I was feeling about the podcast. So I want to do an equivalent for Alex too. But before we get to the break, the plan for season 4, the theme we're going to go with is called hashtag the new normal, which is all about, like obviously in the news, we hear a lot about how coronavirus is awful and what it does to you and all that stuff. The idea behind the new normal is not what is it or how does it affect you? It's how is this changing society and how can we best adapt to those changes in society? So it's kind of more of an optimistic take because I think there are changes happening in society that are very good for society.
You bring up a good point. Yeah. And that's what the season is going to dive into. I mean, many of us, I think, have really hoped to return to what we had previously versus just maybe looking forward to.
Yes. And I want to dispel that notion.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We need to be adaptable. The world around us has changed and may continue to be what it is, may continue to change in another direction. So societal changes and lifestyle changes definitely come with COVID. And like what Millen said, they're definitely worth discussing.
Yeah, because we're never going back to the old normal.
I don't think so. I agree with you.
It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
By definition.
Yep. So
it's all about, how are we going to adapt to these changes? What's going to happen to the world, but in an optimistic way.
Right. Yeah.
Which I don't see a lot of people making that kind of content. So I think it'll be somewhat unique.
I agree.
Hopefully they won't have started making it 5 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now.
Regardless, I think it'll be valuable information.
Yeah.
And it's just a good outlet on life.
Yes. And we're going to be conducting the next season all on Zoom, except Alex and I will be in the same room still.
Yeah, the idea is to have remote capability for guests.
So we'll be able to bring on a wider array of guests and do it all safely. And yeah, we'll change the tech setup a little bit because I'm going to have extra time. I'll be able to put more time into each episode. So I'll be able to actually do a little editing in addition to pulling out marketing clips and stuff like that. So, I mean, from a technical perspective, I'm actually really excited about the coming season because we're going to have, like, the video is going to be better because it's just going to be set up in a way that it's better. Like right now, like, I get what word the word, like, it's a little like physically, the setup is not like well suited for video with like the angles I have available to me.
Yeah, we have a static perspective, or whatever you want to call it. The camera doesn't move and it's not the most appealing or ideal setup.
Yes.
But I mean, again, like Millen's done a lot with, what he's spent. This is actually a pretty damn good setup.
Yeah.
So
no, I mean, the setup is really good.
To be honest, just for the audience, it's incredible what Millen's done. I mean, every guest we've brought on has been very, very impressed with the professionalism and realism of this setup. And it hasn't been like a bank breaker of any kind, right?
No.
So, yeah.
No, I mean, it depends on who you are. It's not for me.
Right.
It's in total, if I were to estimate, in total, it's like a $3,500 setup.
That's with that, right?
With the camera, with the lights,
right?
With all the podcast equipment, with even the shotgun mic, which we're not using on the camera. I think it's about 3,500 because I use this also for my YouTube channel too.
Right. And even, I mean, and that would be maybe cut in half for strictly audio.
For strictly, if I was just audio, it would be like 1,500.
So even less.
Yeah.
Got it. So,
because just the podcast stuff was about $1,500.
yeah. Okay.
So yeah, but there's going to be improvement. I really am really excited about the stuff that I'm going to have available to me. I'm so looking forward to making that trailer.
It's really
You want to know what I'm really looking forward to though? Specifically, I'm looking forward to the moment when I get to show you the first edit and you just go like, what the fuck? Like, what did you do? Like, cause you
already have an idea in mind.
Yeah. I have an idea in mind and I know it's going to blow you out of the water.
Yeah. See, this allows Millen to be a little more futuristic in content creation and structure too, which we haven't been able to do.
Well, and at the end of the day, like I really just want this to be a show, not just a podcast, but a show that I'm like really proud of. And that, you know, when someone asks me, not just necessarily about it, but like if it comes up in a conversation, I'd be like, yeah, I do the show. It's called Spy-Fi After Dark. It's really awesome. It's available in podcast format, but there's also a YouTube video format. You know, we talk about current events, you know, it's, you know, I really want to be, I want to be an evangelical advocate for my own show.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So
it has to be convincing to you first.
Exactly. So a lot of these changes are basically based around that.
Doubling down.
Yeah.
Smart. So
with that, we'll go to a quick break and we'll be back with some other stuff.
Sounds good.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Millen Singh, host of Spy-Fi After Dark. I'm here to just please ask you to rate and or subscribe on whatever platform you might be listening on. It really makes a really big difference to us, and it makes us feel really good about ourselves, so you really should just do it for that reason alone, honestly. But seriously, it boosts our organic search rankings and makes it easier for people to find the podcast, and so it would really help us out a lot if you could shoot us a rating, subscription, whatever's applicable on whatever platform you might be listening on. Anyways, that's it for me. Let's get back to the episode. Do it.
Back in black.
All right, guys, we're back.
Don't keep that in.
Oh yeah, I'm going to.
Cut that shit.
All right, so
add it to the outro. Quality content
for the back half here. Because we're only going to do one break. It's going to be a short episode. For the back half, we're going to talk about Alex's feelings on the podcast so far. And also, we'll talk a little bit about the Spy-Fi brand at large.
Sure.
And the plans for that.
Sure. Okay. So to recap, I think I mentioned this in a previous episode before. So Millen and I had talked about doing a podcast in the past. And we went about this idea for some time, actually
several years.
Yeah. A big percentage of our total friendship. We've had these conversations recurring.
Always at around 2 a.m.
Right. And you know, to the audience, why not take advantage of what's already recurring? Essentially, he and I in conversation, we bring on our friends, we have these insightful conversations and we dive into a variety of topics, right? We're going to do it anyway. Why not share it with an audience? So the podcast is definitely a great creative outlet for Millen. And he's allowed me to also, share the space, and it's engaging for me as well, just because, just regarding my personality, I feel like I can, add some flavor and value to a podcast, that may not be applicable my usual job or outside of this, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, I really enjoy, digging into how people think. I really enjoy that aspect of the podcast where we bring on a guest. The guest gets to talk about what he or she is very passionate about. And I then ask the questions that maybe some of you out there are dying to ask or want to have someone else like myself ask. I'm very interested in people. I love the way people think. And so that's why I've really enjoyed my my time as a co-host on this podcast. Millen and I are also very, very different, and we're arguably complementary, at least in conversation. He and I have similar.
We have a lot of similarities.
I was about to
Specify.
He and I have similar thought processes on a lot of different things, but we're different how we go about. So in conversation, he and I think, balance each other, and you know, the audience can probably agree to some, that.
We're similar, but he's people oriented and I'm autistic.
No, dude, Millen. Come on, man. Someone had to say it. No, Millen. And by the way, one thing I've really enjoyed about this podcast is I haven't made all of the improvements in conversation, but I'm at least trying to be more cogent, more succinct, not coherent, just more cogent. Like I want to.
Yeah, not coherent.
Yeah.
Let's make that clear.
That's for next.
That's never going to happen.
That's for early September for you guys to decide. I'll be spending all of next season.
Yeah, he's going to be in Toastmasters.
I'm going back to school. But I've tried to, make some self-improvements, and so has Millen. It's actually been a great opportunity for both of us to just develop different aspects of ourselves too.
Yeah.
So that's nice. And then I get to spend time with Millen and bring on guests. So it's a win-win. Yeah, that's my overall. I will also say, by the way, just regarding how the podcast has progressed, the last season has been night and day from the first. We were definitely a lot of growing pains. We've definitely improved a lot. I mean, Millen puts a lot of work into the editing.
I actually don't.
Well, you don't need to know that.
Actually, I do up front.
That is autistic.
Yeah.
He does, guys. Blood, sweat.
I put in the work up front so that I could only spend 30 minutes editing each episode.
Blood, sweat, and audition. So
blood, sweat, and Adobe Audition.
But yeah, I mean, I'm actually pretty proud of this last season. Well,
but be honest though, you're going to be happy to not have a weekly commitment every week.
Well, so Millen doesn't live super close. He doesn't live that far. It's about a 25 minute commute. But yeah, I mean, convenience is convenience.
You'll have a commitment for like 25 to 30 weeks out of the year,
give or take. You know what though? What I'm more excited about is to also share that clarity that you have now regarding your podcast. Because people at work, people in my friends groups, in my social groups, ask me about the podcast as well. And it's also difficult for me to describe to others too.
Yeah.
That's going to be more exciting, just being able to actually know what the product is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my general view over the podcast. I've also had ideas regarding a fourth mic and possibly having 2 guests on, and whether or not that would add any value. I've had, some ideas pertaining to video and like how we would want to stage that and what that would look like in the future, versus our current setup now. That's pretty much it for me. I will say that Millen and I recently were talking about, where we're at now and where we want the podcast to be. And that's actually where this episode came from. It's burned from this conversation. And for all of you out there, Spy-Fi After Dark is not necessarily tied to any particular topic or subject matter captured solely in the podcast. It's actually tied to a brand. And Millen, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, kind of give an insight on, that brand, what it means to you, how it's tied to the podcast, or how the podcast is tied to that, and like what do you have planning? Maybe I had to keep it at a high level for the audience.
Dude, you should teach a masterclass on transitions.
Right after this break.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh God. Yeah. So Spy-Fi is a longer term vision. It's basically, I had this idea of being a creative entrepreneur where my job would be to create things that had some value. So products people would want to buy, courses, educational content, YouTube content, all that kind of stuff. Software, games, and also have a YouTube presence and a podcast presence and a social media presence that follows the journey along the way. Because some of my favorite content on YouTube is content following people doing other work. Like my favorite channel on YouTube is called Corridor Crew. And it's literally a channel that's a vlog. I mean, they also happen to have a React series was very popular and like doubled their popularity in like 9 months. So they do a lot of those now, and they're good. They're good episodes. It's called VFX Artists React and Stuntmen React. Excellent. Like actually the best React content on YouTube. But originally this channel was a vlog channel where the company Corridor makes like high concept, high production value shorts on YouTube. And the Corridor Crew channel was sort of a behind the scenes tracking their process, making their work. And along the way, you like learn the personalities of the people who work there, and they develop a mythos and whatnot. And it's a really high production value vlog. Lots of editing goes into it. They do high concept stuff in it. So they'll do like play games and stuff, and they'll add that kind of stuff into it too. And so I really wanted to, I felt like there are not many people who are doing something interesting and then also talking about how they're doing it on a platform like YouTube. And so I felt like that would be a really cool career to have if I could make a living making things that I would already love to make either way. And also making content about how I do it and my process and all that stuff, and have people follow along and appreciate that. And then that also means I have literally a built-in audience anytime I launch something. So if I launch a new game or I launch a new software, there's already this audience of people watching my vlogs and whatnot that might be interested in purchasing. So that's kind of the high level vision.
Pretty smart. I've seen both camps on social media, things like YouTube, like proof of concept, and then just how and why someone is successful. But I haven't seen like that where in your situation, you have these goals in mind. You're going to get there in the future, and you want to establish a journey for people to follow.
Yeah.
Which is smart.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, how do I say this? Not philanthropic, but you're also giving back because it's highly informative.
Yeah.
Versus just doubling down.
Yes.
Because there's some authenticity to it when it's actually part of the process.
Correct.
Meaning like in 5 years, if you wanted to do it now where you're reflecting on how you did it, that's cool still. It's still awesome.
Still cool, yeah.
But it's not the same as this.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's more organic this way.
Yeah.
So to that end, the YouTube channel is kicking off here. I've been producing devlogs for the Iowa Machus project, which is my current project. And I'm trying to do those every other week. And then ideally, I'm hoping to, on the off weeks, make other vlogs. So right now I'm working on my first reaction video, which will be interesting. I didn't realize this at first, but once I had gotten like halfway through it, I was like, hold on a second. The video I'm reacting to is like 21 minutes long. So I have naturally signed myself up for a metric shit ton of editing.
Yeah.
Because the video that I'm going to produce is going to be like at most 15 minutes. And I pause to talk. So I have like 40 minutes of recorded content, and I got to cut that down to like 15.
Yes.
So
you're going to have to be cognizant with all of your reactions.
Yes.
Like in terms of duration.
Yes. Well, and some of the stuff was repetitive. So some of it I could just literally just cut out. Like, because I said a few things more than once. So I could just start cutting stuff out like that. But also the video itself, I'm not showing the whole video. I'm only showing pieces of it.
Highlights.
I'm trying to create an illustrative version, like a shorter version of the part of the video I'm reacting to. Like if I'm reacting to a clip that was like 4 minutes long, I'm trying to create like a 1.5 minute version of it that hits all the most important parts of those 4 minutes.
With 21 minutes, I think that's considered a service anyway.
It is. No, it really is. In this case, it absolutely is. Because one of the biggest problems is it's rambly and too long. I've been like walking around the topic. The video is Brie Larson launching her YouTube channel. Which, whatever. I have plenty of thoughts and you'll hear them soon.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Ideally, this would come out tomorrow on Friday, but I'm not going to be finished editing. So it'll probably be this weekend. And then the next Machus devlog is next Friday.
Awesome.
And once the Machus is finished, I have some ideas on what I'm going to be working on next, but I probably won't talk about them immediately. I'll probably talk about them after I've started working on it for a few weeks. But I do have I have plenty of other things I can talk about. So, but I'm going to attempt my best at having a weekly upload schedule. I think I can do one a week, particularly because now I've done a few vlog style episodes and I've developed some ways to make it easier and faster. And I have like a basic structure in mind for each episode, like because I follow the same basic structure. It's literally, as far as recording goes, because editing is, I can put as much time as I want into it, basically.
Do you share your screen ever?
What do you mean?
In the devlogs.
Yes.
Cool.
Particularly if you watch the second devlog is like more technical. So the subject matter may not be interesting to as many people.
Yeah, I was curious what you were focusing on.
The third one, the one that's coming up, is going to be less that. It's going to be more of a why video.
Cool.
Specifically, it's what actually happened in Iowa this year and why on earth am I doing this project?
And you should have at least one episode dedicated to technical, because it's a technical aspect that was considered.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I like that. How you have different.
So, but I brought it up because in the last devlog, I did a lot of editing in overlays and illustrations and stuff.
Cool.
So I don't really know where I was going with that, but I'm going to try to do one episode. Oh, that's right. As far as recording goes, it's literally, there's a main vlog component, which I record in one sitting and cut that down. And that's the bulk of the videos there. And then usually I'll try to record the intro inside of that sitting. In the case of this last Machus devlog, unfortunately it was out of focus. So I had to scrap that and start over. No, we're good. I checked to look to make sure the screen is still recording. Yeah. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah. And then I'll record an outro separately.
Cool.
After I finish editing usually. So it's usually just those two parts for recording and then edit some stuff in between. It's not like as high production value as I would prefer, but it's good enough.
Yeah.
They're solid videos at this point, I think. So yeah. So working
How many
on
logs?
That more. How many devlogs?
Yeah. You said 3 in total? Or
There's
your plan?
2 out. The third one is next Friday.
How many are you planning to?
Or sorry, the third one is going to be Friday of the week this episode drops.
Okay.
Because this episode's dropping on Tuesday, which is in 5 days. How many am I planning on doing? 1 every other week until it launches.
Oh, got it.
So, well, I don't have an exact launch date, but I'm thinking somewhere in August.
So it could be as many as like 6.
Probably
7.
Yeah, probably about as many as 6. And I do want to also separately do like a trailer for it as well, aside from the vlogs. The
Machus definitely needs a trailer.
Yeah. I wanted to do even more than that, but I'm not going to have the resources to do so. I need someone to help me out with editing, and I just don't have that.
Very technical?
I mean, it's editing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Some of it's creative though. Like the trailer, I have to go out and find like news footage to use in it, and like I have an idea of what it looks like in my head, but yeah. So the Machus is my current project, and there'll be more projects afterwards. I registered an LLC for Spy-Fi Industries
Oh, awesome.
last month and just set up a checking account for it. And I'm going to try to apply for a Amex business card for that too.
Oh, cool.
Because FYI, just a little secret, you should never use debit cards for transactions because it's unsecure.
Yeah.
You should always use credit cards and then pay the balance off, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've got, aside from the Machus, I have some equipment that I want to buy for my camera and which would apply to both the vlog and the podcast. Because the way the setup is going to be from a technical perspective for the next season, since we're doing it on Zoom, I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but we're going to do it on Zoom. I'm going to have the camera much closer to us to make it work with the layout. And so I need a wider angle lens because my current lens is going to be too tight. It's kind of like a random side note, but it's like $500. So
is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. And yeah, in the future, you briefly mentioned a fourth mic. In the future, when we resume in-person guest episodes, that's definitely on the table.
Yeah. Especially for like really contentious arguments. That's a lot of flavor.
Dude, I think the fourth mic will probably happen when we move into a studio. Like those will probably be at the same time. Because
what were you thinking regarding location?
Location wise? I don't know, wherever's cheap. I'm thinking like, I feel like the best spot would be like, you know, those commercial plazas where there's like, you know, restaurants and stuff, and then they're always 2-floor buildings with the second like office floor.
Yes.
I feel like one of those spots would be like the cheapest spot.
Yes, probably.
Especially now.
Like where I worked.
Did you work on one of those?
At Viant?
Really?
Yeah, because we were remote.
I thought you had your own building though. Like what, you were like a first...
I was on the second floor and it was one office suite dedicated to Viant. But the rest were all their own. They were like,
was it commercial underneath you? Like Starbucks and stuff?
No.
Still offices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking there's...
No, I know what you're talking about though. You're talking about like in general plazas and stuff. Where
there's a bunch of those in this area too.
There are.
Like in the PV area.
That'd be cool.
So
close to you.
Something relatively central, or maybe just a little south of here, basically. And affordable. I'm crossing my fingers that due to coronavirus, like ravaging the office economy.
Well, everyone's working from availability and cost should be like.
I feel like the costs are going to plummet. My plan is literally to go around, because there's no equivalent of an MLS for renting commercial property. You know what MLS is? It's a central database of all properties for sale for like houses. It's like what realtors use. There's no equivalent for that for business, for commercial leasing.
Why
it's a bunch of different players with proprietary data sets. Because that's how they compete with each other. They all have their own data. That's their competitive advantage. So I think what I will probably do is I will use a mix of that and maybe even just driving around to areas I'm interested in and just seeing if I can find stuff that's vacant, getting in touch with realtors. And I'd be looking for a space no more than 500 square feet, probably more like 300 or 400
What's your monthly limit?
I'd literally just say like $500 a month. That's all I'm going to pay for it. Max. Cause a lot of square footage in office, commercial square footage in Phoenix is $17 to $20 per square foot per year is like the listed price.
You said how much? You said 17
to $20 per square foot per year for leasing space. So I basically just planning on going in and haggling them. You know, it's a small space. And like my budget's like $500 for like 500 square feet. So anyways, I feel like it'll work, but that probably won't happen.
The high end will be like 800, I think, a month.
Well, if I use the list price, yeah. But I mean, pretty much my maximum is going to be like 500.
If you can negotiate, now's the time. Yes.
That's what I mean. It's like, I feel like it's a ripe area for negotiation. Like, I feel like I'm not doing it right now, but maybe towards the end of this year or early next year, depending on how things go, maybe a little later. In my mind, I have like two metrics. One, we hit 50 episodes on the podcast. I think if we hit 50 episodes, that shows that like this is going to be around for a long time. Yeah. So it's worth investing in a better space. And then the other one being like, it makes sense economically in that my business is bringing in enough revenue to cover the rent, or at least most of it. So I'd be looking for a small space, literally just be enough for a podcast setup and then a desk that I can basically, it's like a hybrid, like working desk and set for recording vlogs and stuff. And yeah, so I feel like when I'd be looking, that's when the landlords would be like, wow, okay, this stuff is going to be empty for a long time. Like, I just need to have someone be there because it costs them money every month they don't have a tenant. So even if they don't make much money on me, they might say yes just so that they aren't losing money. Mm-hmm. Anyways, we rambled enough. At this point,
it's all good.
At this point, anyone listening should have a pretty good idea of where we're going for season 4.
Yeah. We're going to be more concise, more linear.
Basically the opposite of this episode.
Yeah. Lessons learned. No lessons.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. I'm really excited about it. So let's get you out of here. You got to get to your appointment. So.
Oh yeah, it's been a pleasure as always. I'm looking forward to upcoming season and new direction.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. We will see you mañana.
Take care.